Yeah, listeners, I've been dealing with the COVID. Note to everybody listening out there, if you travel to Texas, throw a mask on. Man.
Oh, man.
Second time. First time we were coming back from the Dallas
Tango Festival.
And that's the first time I got COVID.
The first time,
the end of 2021, and had it over Christmas.
And you had a break.
And then 2 years later, right, break in 2022, 2023 again.
Yeah.
COVID right before Christmas.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I got all my Christmas shopping done.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry you've had to deal with that, but it's been sort of an interesting feeling of nostalgia and almost a deja vu, because I was like, oh yeah, there's this thing that happens during the year called Alex getting COVID, and we're at home a lot and we do house projects and we just watch a lot of Netflix and eat too much food. It was sort of, there was something nice about it happening again in this way. So I've personally embraced this period of time, and it's been somewhat fruitful. I don't know. How do you feel about it? You're the one really going through the tough part
I don't
of it.
feel that great.
I know. It's terrible.
I appreciate that you see it as this joyful period when I emerge from my smelly, stuffy room. Kleenex all over the place for 2 hours to put together one piece of furniture.
Have you used this time to reflect upon the year? Upon 2023, has that crossed your mind at all?
No, COVID is insidious in that it shuts down everything. I mean, I can't do anything that requires any kind of focus. Yeah. So I finished Better Call Saul.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And here you are. You're still committed to follow through and gather your energies for this episode.
Yeah, apologies for the coughing that might come through.
Well, I have been reflecting upon 2023 and this whole year, and I was thinking about this episode as being sort of a wrap-up episode of looking back at the year and reflecting about some of the best, the worst, the most memorable, the most exciting, and what are those things that I've experienced over this year that are worthy of being remembered in this episode. And so I came up with a few questions or a few categories for us to reflect on, and then maybe you'll come up with your own things you want to throw in as we go through this. And then maybe even our listeners will be inspired to share some of their own stories. And if you are joining us for the first time, or if you want to reach out to us, you can shoot us a message on social media at IMSO I'm So Tango. And you can reach us at connect@imsotango.com on our email. So the first category was, what has been your biggest tango first this year? Like an experience that you've never had before, has to do with tango, that was sort of like a big revelation or a big insight or lesson, something like that. That was a first for you.
Yeah, I'm really curious what that was for you. Go ahead.
Well, I'll share mine. And granted, I was realizing some of my answers might have what's it called? A bias because it happened not so long ago.
Oh, there's always recency bias.
Recency bias. Yes,
it's so hard to remember what happened between January and April 15th.
I know. And I was realizing that. That's why this episode is very difficult. But I thought, you know what? For next year, I will have this at the back of my mind throughout the year when things like this happen. And I will make note as I go along. So next year, maybe we'll have a better, more comprehensive awareness of what happens through the year. But nonetheless, so this might be guided by recency bias, but my big first was attending a festival and only going to afternoon milongas. That's not something I had ever done. And it was a really big deal for me because I feel anytime that I sign up for a festival, I feel like I pay my hard-earned money for this festival and I need to suck out every ounce of value out of it, which means I need to be there every hour of every milonga of every day. And if there's anything on top of that that's included in the pass, I must also take advantage of that as well.
Yeah.
That's been my outlook. And this time, there was so much anxiety for me about going to this festival at night. I was having a lot of really just obvious fears and thoughts about like having to drive at night. And this was to the Gavito Tango Festival. It was held in downtown. And, you know, I would have to drive there and find parking and walk at night. And there was just something that I know. Downtown LA is a special place. It's a special place. And I say that having traveled by myself and been in Buenos Aires alone at night at 3 a.m, waiting for a bus every night of the week. Like I've experienced dark cities at night, but for some reason LA is like special. There's just this other layer to it that it's so deserted at the same time that it's so populated by interesting characters. So it was causing a lot of stress. And
are you fearful of walking around downtown LA at night alone?
By myself? I'll have to admit, I'll have to admit to that. Even though I put up my unafraid face and, nothing has ever happened. It's not like I've spent a lot of time there, but the first night that I went, so there was a Thursday night milonga that I went to, and I drove there, and the park, I had this whole plan, and I was so excited that I found parking on this app ahead of time. I booked my parking. So I thought, oh, I'm so smart. My parking is in this like garage that's, private garage. It's just like a block, like 2 blocks from the hotel. It's just this perfect setup. And then I get there and I realize that it's actually like, I don't know, like a 12-minute walk from the garage, that the 2 blocks are actually these like massive blocks that are really 4 blocks. And so I had to walk, just down this street, and I had to turn the corner, and it wasn't that dramatic, really. Nothing happened, but it was just this awareness of how alone I felt. There's not like people just walking down the street and casual nightlife kind of energy. It's more like there's me, and then there's, homeless people, crazy people walking around the street. And like, I don't really know what's around me. I'm not familiar with my surroundings. And if I lived there, or if I was more exposed to that, I probably would not have a more difficult time. Like, it would probably be easier, but it just was the first time in a long time that I had to like navigate all of that. I know I'm sounding very suburban and white right now. I know that. I know that. But here I am. And so I was like really struggling to reconcile having to go through all this stress of getting to the Malanga and then having to stay really late and then coming back by myself. And so I just woke up the next day after that whole Thursday experience, and I was like, why am I putting this on myself? Like, why am I demanding that it has to happen this way just because I paid for it? Like, maybe the whole lesson here is like, I paid for it so that I can experience it the way that makes sense for me. And that was like a very profound adult thought all of a sudden, where I was like, oh, I can actually enjoy this on my terms. And the only obstacle here is to, I guess, eat some of the cost, or like that I don't get as much value. But and the value I was realizing is like, that's such a fluid concept anyway.
Yeah, I get that the reason you don't like performances is because it takes away from the dancing that you could be doing. But ultimately, is it just quantity of dances that matters? I mean, I don't think that's ever really been your approach to it, right? Versus
I don't know. It used to be. I mean, I actually remember a conversation we had very early on at in Seattle, where that was our first event,
mm-hmm.
where we spent some time together and we would talk outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very special place.
Yeah. And I remember I'm standing in front of you and I'm complaining mm-hmm. about how much my feet were hurting.
Mm-hmm. And then I jump in with something profound, poetic.
You looked at me and you just said, why don't you just go home? Why are you still here? And it was such a strange question to ask. That question it had never even occurred to me mm-hmm. at that moment of like, what do you mean? I stay till the end. Mm-hmm. Like, you stay till the last tanda. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And
yeah. So you cut me off because I was about to end that with me. Go home with me.
Oh, what?
Why don't you just go home?
Oh,
with me.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think you. That was not your vibe.
I was just a puppy dog.
That was not your vibe. I think you were still trying to just figure out how to communicate with me or something. That was not the smooth operator you became later. So I remember telling you that the reason why I had to stay was because, what if I miss that tanda? What if my best tanda of the night is still ahead of me? And by leaving, I'm going to rob myself of another ecstatic experience. Like, it just didn't cross my mind. So that was a mindset for a long time. And I think there's just been this gradual, slow transition to a different relationship with it that culminated in me being able to say, like, you know what? I love dancing in the afternoon, and I'm just going to really enjoy it the way I want. And it was amazing. It was like one of the best festival experiences I've ever had. It was like so hassle-free, and I was so refreshed because I slept so much, and there was none of that like typical aches and pains. By the third day, you see everybody and they're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. And I'm all like perky and excited to be there. So it was fun. It was fun to be that for a change versus just like totally being dead. So I know that if you had gone with me, it would have been a different experience. And I was bummed that you couldn't, but it was also sort of this feeling like, oh, what is it like for me to go to a festival by myself in LA? Like, what does that look like for me? Mm-hmm. I've never had that experience before, so I appreciated that.
Well, I'm glad I came up with that.
Thank you. Thank you for providing me with that.
Well, my first that I'm going to talk about was also at an event in LA. And it was having my partner leave during the dance.
What?
Yeah. I didn't tell you about that?
I don't have a memory of this. I feel like I would have.
You'll probably remember, yeah. So, I kept saying this woman, and we start dancing, and we get maybe 30 seconds in to the first song, and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I think something got caught in my shoe," and she bent down to do something to her shoe, and then she just walks off the dance floor, and I kind of follow her immediately. After that, just kind of seeing how this is, well, I'm not just going to sit here in the middle of the dance floor. So I kind of instinctively follow her off the dance floor, but just kind of continue on after she sits down. And I remember thinking, let it go, Alex. That happens, but it did linger for a little bit. And I did kind of go, well, how might I have prevented that from happening? But it kind of stung a little bit.
Wow. I mean, what's your interpretation? Why do you think she just didn't like your style of dancing?
I think so.
Interesting. Yeah. Was this, are we talking about a really seasoned dancer, somebody who's on the beginner side?
Yeah.
Where are they falling on that spectrum?
Yeah. I think she might be a little bit more of a beginner dancer.
Interesting.
There was something kind of off in the embrace, and I feel like usually I can kind of adjust a little bit, but it just was not gelling. And I do feel like this was this isn't recent. It was beginning of the year. So it's a little hard to recall some of the very specific details, but I think the feeling was I don't know, maybe she wanted to do more of a salon type embrace, and close embrace.
She had a certain idea of what it's supposed to be like, mm-hmm. and you were not doing that. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you didn't tell me about that one.
Oh?
No. Did it impact the rest of the night for you, or did you kind of bounce back pretty quickly?
Yeah. No, it was fine. I mean, I kind of sat and sort of
reflected
on it for a little bit, sort of, that was interesting. But the things that you might normally, or that you might, the ways that it might impact me and prevent me from dancing, I bounced back pretty quick. I think there were maybe moments later on in the evening when I just recall sitting down and thinking about it, but I wasn't insulted. And I tried really hard not to put the blame on her or be like,
did you think about saying her again?
No. And I've,
have you seen her since?
I think I have seen her a time or two since. I get this feeling like she might not remember me, or almost maybe I don't quite remember exactly who she is.
That's pretty hilarious that you're, it hurts, but then you're kind of who is this person again? Which I don't know. It feels like is that a guy thing? I don't know. That's what my mind wants to say, that guys are typically not so acute on remembering the details of certain things. Whereas women, I think we remember how it smelled in the air and the color of what they were wearing when it
yes. She might have been glittery. That's about it. But then, Jordan kicks in. You gotta have a short memory.
Yeah.
Just get back out there. Take the shot again.
Yeah. That's good. Well, that is an unfortunate first. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah. It might have happened way back in the day, but it was the first in quite a while.
She didn't know how good she had it. And I bet if she's listening to this podcast right now, she might be like, oh my God, that was him. I remember that. And she might be like, oh my God, I'm going to have to cavaseo him.
It's because your breath stank, bro.
Okay.
Listerine strips.
Okay. All right. Okay, here's my second wrap-up question of the year. Think of a particular tango crush that you've had this year. And I feel like crushes in tango, they just sort of evolve with time as we dance. We really connect with certain people. We admire certain people. We really want to dance with them really badly. And when we do, it's kind of a special moment. And so my question is, thinking of that kind of experience where you got to dance with somebody that has been on your radar for a long time, you've just been really admiring them, and you finally get to dance with them.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like?
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like for you?
The first thing that comes to mind is dancing with someone who I really admire and respect, and I know is a fantastic dancer, and she's considered she's teacher. But I couldn't really tell you anything beyond just we had a dance. Maybe it wasn't the best orchestra for me. That particular experience, I can remember thinking like I just wasn't really inspired by the music, and so it was a fine dance, but wasn't anything to really create good pod for, honey. But somewhat related, there is when you describe it as like a crush, and so I would say this year I did have this thought occur to me a few more times, and I don't know why. Maybe it was because I was embarking on this thing called marriage, and there was the thought I had of, wow, this lady is hot. How is it that I just get to hold this woman like this close? Like this shouldn't. And I haven't told you this, and I haven't really sort of talked about it much out loud, but yeah, I had this thought of like, man, I'm getting away with a lot here, and being able to, be that intimate, with someone. And I don't know, I think it kind of plays back a little bit into something I've heard you talk about with other people about like, what's the risk for guys in tango? I think you were saying for women, sometimes you don't want to give the wrong impression or something. Like you don't want to give somebody the idea that it's anything beyond just the dance. And same goes for guys too sometimes. And so sometimes I can feel like I've had this real deep experience, and this is something I've had more recent this year, where I have this feeling like, wow, this is going someplace. But that how far can you take that before it starts getting to a place where you're not sure what it will be in the mind of another? And that feels like a risk present for guys,
That's an interesting point you're making. And I appreciate that, because it's true. I realized as you were saying that I also have these experiences with women that are very deep, but there's never a question of intention. Like it just doesn't enter into that context, or very, very rarely, perhaps. So I can see that there's this extra layer of testing the ground that can be present there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my crush this year, which was a different crush from before, because it's not somebody that I even could consider would ever be on my radar for dancing. I've never imagined this woman wanting to dance with me or ever capaceting her. And she's been one of those people who I see from a distance, and I don't even know if she knows my name, kind of thing, but I kind of like admire and watch her from a distance. And she, I don't even know how it came together that I finally got a chance to dance with her. And I felt so intimidated by the time that we took the embrace. And there was this awareness of how much of my energy was just spent not losing my shit because I was like overwhelmed by all of the thoughts of like, she dances with so and so, and I don't know half the stuff this person knows, or she's got such high taste or high standards for dancing, and she's got so much beauty in her movement, and who am I to even pretend I can do anything? So a lot of it was that experience. And I've danced with her maybe a couple of times since then. And, each time it's a little bit like, okay, here we go. Like it's very much that experience. And I don't know whether that's a quality of this person in particular, or just what I'm projecting onto her just from my own perspective. But that was, that was like interesting to feel all of those emotions, because I don't feel them very much anymore in other contexts. It's been a long time since I've actually
you don't get nerves?
Yeah, I don't get nerves very often, like almost ever. I definitely don't
outside of tango, you mean, or within tango?
Within tango, in terms of dancing with certain people.
There's very few number of dancers who will make you nervous.
Yeah, exactly. Good. And yeah, so in some ways I'm like, oh yeah, good. I still feel that.
Yeah. I remember thinking a while back, I was talking with like a guy who just started tango, and I wanted to grab him and tell him, embrace the nerves, embrace the nervousness. Like it's actually this really nice place to be.
Yeah.
Where, you're really, up in your head, and you got the nerves about dancing. It's kind of nice, because at the other end, sometimes it can be, you can hit that tango phase where you're just kind of bored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like all the same. And you kind of question, like, why is it that I do this dance that at the end of the night, usually I just kind of feel like there's a little bit of a twinge in my back. I've gone to bed too late and I have to get up, tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And that's a fine phase to be in too. But like embrace the nervousness. Like it's kind of nice. Well, So when you look back on the year, there's some people continue to take classes, workshops, try to develop their tango. Have you had an experience this year that comes to mind in terms of like your best sort of learning experience when it comes to tango, workshop or otherwise?
Yeah, that's a good one, because I haven't had a lot in recent years. I don't feel like for a long time, I just stopped being interested in taking classes and workshops. And this year was the first year in a while that I, sort of, gave it some time and took some workshops here and there. And for the most part, I kind of felt the same about them that I've always had, except for the workshops that we took with Cerkan and Cecilia in San Francisco.
Reaching all the way back to July.
Yeah, I know. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was a pretty big deal because it was the first time in a while that I felt like there was something different that they were teaching. They weren't just teaching patterns. And everybody seems to complain about that in general, that a lot of the classes focus just on patterns versus other aspects of the dance. So I still don't see a lot of examples of something different. And they really provided some new way of exploring tango that was much more playful and kind of went with more like where I'm at in my dance.
No example. Like, what is an example of some module they taught?
Yeah. I think one of the first things that stands out is this quality of stretching of the movement that they talked about in the first sessions, where they showed how you can elongate the gesture through bending of the torso or kind of inviting certain types of lines from your partner, like lifting the leg or extending it in different ways. So it was a lot more about like bending the line of tango that you see. So instead of just extending the leg to the side, it's going to be put with this sort of different alignment of the torso and sort of exaggerated gestures through the embrace. So it's a little bit louder, a little bit more opulent, and it goes beyond perhaps some of the normal boundaries of what people traditionally will say this is tango. But that's kind of what I crave. I'm really interested in that. So I really loved seeing that.
Yeah, I don't take lessons very often. I mean, and I'll follow your lead when you see instructors that that you respect, that we should take lessons from. So that's the only one that comes to mind for me as far as workshops. They had us do this technique at the beginning where you were really trying to sort of stretch your arm around your partner. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And
that's right.
like that concept alone was just, it was very basic. I mean, it's not a pattern at all. It was just this idea of like, how do you wrap your arm around? But in working through that and sort of seeing that was okay movement, that was movement that works in the dance, was pretty enlightening to me.
Yeah.
Now, any benefits from it, have long since been forgotten.
I know. And that's the reality of it. We made all these videos. We have all those videos and we committed to practicing all those things when we haven't. But that's how it goes a lot of times. Yeah. So
tango's exhausting.
Yeah, it is. It is. We've traveled a lot this year for tango. And I'm curious if you've learned something about travel this year that you're going to be applying in your future travel. Any lessons or any travel hacks that you want to?
Whatever sort of travel makes you most comfortable. That's what pays dividends. So tell me.
That's not wrong. That's not wrong.
I haven't really done it this year, but those KT strips? The KT
yes.
tape? The KT tape?
Yes. Kinesiology tape.
Yeah. I think it was actually maybe 2 years ago, before this last Vegas marathon that we went to, but I was having some issues with my back and we used that. And that really helped quite a bit.
Yeah.
So if you knew you were going to be dancing 8 hours a day, it stays on in the shower. Strap your back up and it feels a little bit like you're the $6 million man. You're just like,
it's true. It's kind of a magical stuff.
Yeah.
It saved me one year. That's true.
Yeah.
Bringing KT tape.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, one thing that we've very successfully implemented that I feel has improved our experience in travel quite a bit is not flying out early in the morning after the festival.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last time we did it was fall of 2022. And I think it was Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to fly out the next day. We went to bed at 3 a.m. and we got up at 7 or something like that.
Wow.
And we had to take an Uber to the train and then the train to somewhere. And it was just such a stressful experience that I remember from then on just being like, you know what, just don't do this to yourself. I don't know why we would feel the need to do this, but I know other dancers. I've met many, many dancers who do this thing where they...
Yeah. I mean, just in case anybody was wondering, let's say what the reason is, cost. Like there's usually I'm like, who's going to take either that or some sort of scheduling issue, right? Like you have to be back by some certain time. But short of that, usually it's because the cost of some flight is significantly cheaper versus the one that you can take in the middle of the day and have it be super leisurely.
Well, to me, it sort of erases the experience, the positive experience of the festival when you have to just sort of go through all of this really stressful stuff getting back into your life. So to me, the cost, like what is the real cost? Is it the monetary value or like this is your time that you've selected to dance and enjoy your life? So how much is it worth for you to actually take that with you on the other end of it?
I mean, this is where my tango nomad bros probably would back me up. I mean, you're probably not going to remember it 3 months from now. I mean, you apparently do a full year and change on from this experience. But, you know, the idea of like, all right, so I have to wake up off of 3-4 hours of sleep. Like, yeah, I feel like crap, but I'm eventually going to be on a plane. And if I need to get some shut eye at that point, I can do it. Now, if it's easy enough for you to sleep on a plane, you know, great. If you're not somebody who can sleep on a plane, then, you know, that's a whole other story. But, you know, it's like, this is different strokes for different folks.
You know what? I think this needs to be this is a great question for our listeners. I'm going to include this question at the end of this episode. So you can let us know what kind of a tango traveler are you? Would you rather pay the extra money and fly out later and have a leisurely morning where you get up and you go get brunch and you have time to do some yoga and then you go to the airport and fly out, or you save a couple of $100 by waking up after 3 hours of sleep and rushing to the airport?
Yeah. I think Leela wants to chime in with her opinion.
Leela wants to. She wants it. Okay. Now, I'm going to mention just one more little hack for me that's been a life changer, because this is something that's very difficult for me because I'm a light sleeper. Very light sleeper. I don't know if you knew this about me, honey, but so it's kind of a problem when I travel and I don't do well with earplugs. And what I found that works for me pretty well is using my earbuds and playing white noise through the earbuds.
Mm.
And
it's nice to be able to sleep on your back, isn't it?
I don't,
because you can't really do that. You can't keep.
I would actually
earbuds in on your side.
would rather sleep on my side. I would rather sleep on my side. That's true. But sometimes it's either you sleep on your back or you don't sleep. So, and a more recent discovery also is that I can use my earbuds at the milonga when it's too loud, which just happened recently. We were visiting a milonga new to us, and it was too loud, and I just ended up popping my earbuds in, and it helped to dampen the sound. So it's sort of kind of a nice hack for me. I'm pretty sensitive in my hearing. So I actually just saw recently that they now make these earplugs that are dedicated just for daily use that you put in throughout the day. You have them in, and they have different settings where they block out the sound around you to different degrees. And it's meant for people who are like overwhelmed by sound and stuff. And, I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? I'm one of those people sometimes. Like, I can be overwhelmed by sound. And there's sometimes I go to a milonga and it's so loud that I will leave. And that happens at festivals a lot. Mm-hmm. And so that's why, to me, it was like a big deal to have some sort of way to prevent that from overwhelming.
I'm surprised you don't see more of that. More people with earplugs at milongas that might be sensitive to hearing. They have those special earplugs that have like little holes in the center so that you can, I think it's so that you can hear the bass. Or maybe
I've seen some that are actual earplugs, but they're like really uncomfortable, like being inside the ear. Mm-hmm. This other device that I saw is more like an earbud. It just kind of sits in the ear. But
okay, last one, honey. What was your most memorable hotel experience of the year?
I love this question because I love nice hotels. And you know that about me. You have really good hotel choice. And we typically stay at nice places, I think, when we travel. But this one hotel really kind of blew my mind.
At least until the points wear out.
And this was Hotel Kabuki in San Francisco when we went there in July. That was a very memorable tango trip. But that hotel kind of really blew my mind for reasons that I didn't even knew existed. One was just like aesthetically, it was such a beautiful place. It was very well designed and it was very pleasant to be in. And secondly, they had really amazing customer service, which, if you remember, I actually left my jewelry there.
That's right.
And I didn't realize that I left my jewelry there until I flew back to LA and was unpacking. It was like 2 days after the trip. And I called them and they had it and they shipped it to us. And it was there like within 2 days. It was amazing. But then the last thing that I really did not expect was they have an amazing gym. Like, it was the most pleasing gym experience I've ever had. It was so calm. It was like there was bamboo, there was water fountains. It was so peaceful. So I definitely have it on my mind. Like if we go back to San Francisco to stay there, because I
remember it was really closely. It was right next to a Nigeria, the Asian supermarket. So it was like really easy to pop in and get like quick meals, like high protein meals too, because you get like a little thing of sushi for not too much. Little bento boxes. So I really like that about it. I'm pretty sure I saw H. John Benjamin there in the lobby when we were leaving, but I didn't go up to confirm it. He's the guy that he's a voice actor mostly. He does the voice of Archer and Bob for Bob's Burgers. He's like got a very distinctive voice.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff.
What about for you, honey?
I would say it was the hotel in Mexico. At the beginning of the year.
Oh my God, I can't believe you're bringing that up.
I don't know how to describe it to people.
The complete opposite of Hotel Kabuki.
Yeah, just memorable. It's like
memorable.
I did.
Yes.
You've been in one nice hotel. You're kind of in it all.
It's true.
That's it's nicer hotels than Hotel Kabuki as well. It's very, very nice hotel. But that was something. And
this was in Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah, that's right. And you remember in Dune where they're staying, like when they actually arrive on the planet, and where he's like staying with his father.
Okay.
You remember
kind of remember this, yeah.
I mean, everything's very austere.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, the architecture looks kind of big and grandiose, but there's like nothing on the walls.
Yeah.
It's just like stone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I remember about the hotel. It was just stone.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you exit your hotel room, it's kind of cavernous, like all the way to the elevator. If you go down the stairs, it's just stairs. They're half exposed. So if it's raining, it's like kind of getting wet, inside a little bit. And it's just such an interesting, hotels just aren't like that, in the States, I guess. And the thing about that one was the AC.
Oh my God. I blocked this out of my memory, but we were staying, the room faced onto the street where they had that restaurant part of the hotel. Mm-hmm. And they had this industrial size vent that was always on. So there was like just a lot of noise from that. And then there was construction next door.
Yeah.
And then there was the actual fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All things that I'd be perfectly fine with. It wouldn't really bother me too much, but I know for you.
That was terrible. That was before I came up with my trick of using my headphones.
Yeah.
I tried.
So there were a couple difficult nights to get through.
Yeah, that was tough. Yeah. Thanks for remembering that one. I think that was an important one to close out the 2023 on, because I think I made some massive resolutions after that stay at the hotel to prioritize my health at all cost and really take care of myself, because that was such a tough.
Yeah,
such a tough festival.
It does give me a little bit of the sense of what you're talking about, because I remember thinking after that I didn't get a vacation.
Right.
It was like 5 days. I took off from work.
It was the longest trip we've taken.
And when I got back, I was like, that was just exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
And not terribly relaxing.
Yeah.
Though had a great time, a lot of fun. We had a lot of friends that were down there at the same time. So that was...
Yeah, I mean, we made it work. But
that was great. But yeah, there was still a lot of like kind of stress.
There's a lot of stress.
Those things. I mean, my goodness, I remember the line just to check in.
Oh, the line.
It was like a full-on hour just to check in.
Oh, my God. And yes.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Well...
It's been a memorable year.
It's been a memorable year.
2023.
Yeah. We're finishing out strong. Have a good 2024 ahead of us. It's been really fun building this podcast this year, and hope to see you in the new year. We banter on next week.